What would you do if the accident that destroys your career also exposes that you have been racing a broken car for weeks without knowing it? The Brazilian GP not only marked Oscar Piastri's most devastating retirement in 2025, but it also uncovered a hidden problem that threatens to ruin his season, and perhaps his future in Formula One. On lap 7 of the sprint race of the 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix, everything broke in just 1 second. While spectators enjoyed a start to the race with changing conditions, and Lando Norris confidently led from pole, on a day marked by weather uncertainty and a partially wet track, his teammate, Oscar Piastri, faced a completely different situation. He was third, pressured by Kimi Antonelli of Mercedes, but still in a privileged position. What happened in the next corner not only cost him valuable points, but ignited a technical and emotional crisis within McLaren that few imagined. Piastri approached turn 3 at Interlagos with the usual precision that has characterized him since his F1 debut. But on that return, the combination of external and internal factors proved lethal. As he attacked the apex, his left front tire barely grazed the inner curb, a common maneuver he had done countless times. What he could not see or foresee was that the curb was soaked by accumulated water, invisible from the cabin. At first glance, the line looked clean, but the trap was already set. The result was immediate and brutal. The car lost all traction in the front area. The rear axle tried to correct the spin, but it was too late. In fractions of a second, the MCL39 spun around, lost control, and was thrown sideways towards the protective barriers. The blow not only ended his career, but left the image of a stunned Piastri, hitting the steering wheel while the technical team analyzed what had just happened. And the most disconcerting thing, it was not an isolated case. Just a few seconds later, two more drivers, Nico Hülkenberg and Franco Colapinto, met the same fate at the exact same point on the track. All three had made the same mistake, touching the outside curb in turn 3. It wasn't a coincidence, it was a pattern. And what seemed like an individual failure revealed a collective failure in the team's reading of the circuit conditions. But also something much deeper for McLaren. The technical analysis did not take long to arrive. Martin Brundle, with years of experience as a driver and analyst, explained it crudely: they put a wheel where they shouldn't have been. But not because they made a driving error, but because the track hid an invisible trap. Everyone who touched that wet piano was a victim of the same betrayal. However, what set Piastri apart from the other two drivers involved was his context. While Hülkenberg and Colapinto were driving for teams with less pressure and no immediate title aspirations, Piastri was competing in a championship. Every point counted. Every decision mattered. And every mistake, no matter how small, could have irreparable consequences. The accident was a watershed. He not only physically destroyed his car and his sprint race in Brazil, it also broke the fragile internal balance within McLaren. From that point on, what began as a technical review of the accident transformed into a full audit of the car's performance. And what they found was much more worrying than a simple piloting error in wet conditions. It was a silent accumulation of setup problems, disconnection between driver and machine, and signals ignored in previous races. The accident, ironically, was the best thing that could have happened to Oscar, because it finally forced the team to look at what they didn't want to see. And it is in that duality, the tragedy that awakens the truth, that the true importance of that impact on Interlagos lies. It wasn't just an off-track trip. It was the moment McLaren discovered that one of its drivers was literally driving blind. From the outside, the McLaren MCL39 looks like a masterpiece of modern engineering. Its performance in qualifying, its top speed in optimal conditions, and its ability to generate downforce in medium and fast corners have placed it as one of the most feared cars on the grid in 2025. However, what was discovered after Piastri's accident in Brazil was an alarming technical paradox. The fastest car in the championship could be, at the same time, a relentless and uncontrollable machine in the hands of the wrong driver, or more precisely, in the hands of a driver who has not been hurt enough. Oscar Piastri did not come to Formula One as an ordinary talent. His driving style, methodical, precise, and millimeter, has been forged through years of success in lower categories, always supported by one principle: understand the car before forcing it. And that approach, which in other contexts has given him titles and podiums, has now become his biggest obstacle. Because the MCL39 does not allow itself to be dominated by softness. It demands aggressiveness. It requires pushing the mechanical limit of rear-wheel drive. It requires, in short, a style that Lando Norris has made his own, but that Piastri finds completely unnatural. The root of the problem, according to Andrea Stella, team director, lies not so much in Piastri's talent as in the design of the car. Unlike its predecessor, the MCL-38 of 2024, which was more neutral in its reactions, the MCL-39 has evolved with a more extreme technical direction. The car offers extremely high performance, but only if it is driven as it was conceived, with a lot of controlled sliding on the rear axle, especially in low-adhesion corners, where the driver must literally cause instability to generate heat in the tires and activate the grip. An absolute contradiction with what many young pilots learn in their early stages. This explains why, since the Mexican GP in Austin, Piastri has begun to show signs of discomfort. Loss of time in traction, high degradation in the middle stints, and above all, a progressive loss of confidence in the late braking phases. The car does not react as he expects. And when that happens, the pilot enters a silent spiral of micro-adjustments that often do not solve the problem, but rather amplify it. The situation was aggravated by a technical fact that went unnoticed by the general public. Since Piastri's accident in Baku in September 2024, his car has shown a subtle, but constant structural imbalance. It was not an obvious damage, but rather a slight loss of symmetry in the levels of stiffness in the front suspension, a minimal difference in dynamic behavior that could have significantly altered the pilot's feeling of control without the numerical data clearly reflecting it. These types of structural microasymmetry phenomena are difficult to detect and even more difficult to correct in the middle of the season without a complete chassis reconstruction. And meanwhile time passes, the races pile up, and Piastri must decide, does he adapt to the car, or does he push for the car to adapt to him? Tension grows because within the team, comparisons are inevitable. Norris, with increasingly consolidated confidence, makes the most of the technical package, which reinforces the narrative that the problem is not the car. But that would be dangerous reading. The reality is more complex. The MCL-39 has been tuned around the characteristics of a single pilot, and that is leaving Oscar Piastri in a position that no driver wants to occupy, that of feeling like a passenger more than a driver. When a car works only under one form of piloting, it stops being a versatile tool and becomes a single-edged sword. The MCL-39 is, in essence, a beast tamed by Lando Norris, but one that refuses to cooperate with Oscar Piastri. Formula One is many things at the same time. It is an engineering competition, a test of strategy, and a psychological battle hidden under the glare of spectacle. And if there is a story that summarizes that complexity, it is the one that Oscar Piastri lives today. Because what seemed like a technical crisis, a car that was difficult to control, has ended up revealing a much deeper problem, one that combines the emotional exhaustion of a driver in internal struggle, the rigidity of a technical direction oriented towards a single driving style, and a team strategy that has begun to show its cracks when faced with the reality of having two talents with different needs. After the accident in Brazil, McLaren didn't just review the telemetry or grip data. It also initiated an internal review of Piastri's final racing weekends. And what they found was worrying: a downward performance curve, not explained by piloting errors, but by the accumulation of poorly calibrated strategic decisions that unintentionally were separating the Australian from the center of the project. Since Austin and Mexico, McLaren had been working with a development logic that maximized performance on low-grip tracks, high temperatures, and slippery asphalt. Circuits that required looser configurations, more extreme in terms of aerodynamic balance and tolerance to instability. Lando Norris, whose driving style has always been more aggressive on the rear axle, embraced those characteristics and transformed them into competitive advantages. But for Piastri, that same technical direction was a wall. His style is more reactive, less intuitive, and oversteer. He is a pilot who builds confidence through order, repetition, and predictability. When that goes away, so does your attacking margin. And in today's F1, where the differences between elite drivers are measured in thousands, the mental factor becomes a silent multiplier. Either it pushes towards performance, or it drags you into doubt. Andrea Stella verbalized it almost philosophically: Oscar must accept that sliding the car does not mean that he is making a mistake. On this type of track, sliding is necessary. And that phrase, while technically correct, reveals a dangerous disconnect. You can't force a pilot to change his instincts under pressure. Because if you hesitate, if you mentally correct each movement, you lose tense not because of speed but because of insecurity. And insecurity in F1 costs more than any penalty. What Piastri has faced in silence during these weeks is an invisible pressure. That of feeling left behind not only by the results, but by the constant feeling of driving against his own DNA. That tension is reflected in technical briefings, in tuning discussions, even in the way engineers interpret your feedback. The car, it seems, doesn't respond badly. But he feels that he is not responding as he should. And on a team where decisions are made based on immediate performance, that difference in perception can cost you a championship, or worse. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.